Okay, so for the last little bit of working with liquids to make water effects, what we're going to go ahead is first off make sure that we are in Art, where we're going to take a look at the last way to make water with the other renderer. So, Art Render, change Active Shade to Art, and we're just about ready to go. So first off, I'm going to go ahead and just make a simple plane, and I can make this kind of as big as I want, and I'm going to make it pretty big for mine. I'll also go ahead and give this some edged faces just so I can see, and let's give it some crazy poly count. So I'll go 400 by 400. And I'll give it, say, about 1,000 by 1,000 polygons. A lot of them, but that's what we need and what we're going to want, especially if I'm going to try to make this scene look pretty good overall. Okay, so now that I have the plane, let's go ahead and make a couple more things. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and make a sphere. And I'll bring it up just a little bit. And then lastly, I'm going to go with a cylinder, and I'll bring it down quite a bit, but I'll go ahead and lift it out of what's going to be my water anyway. Okay. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and go into my Create Lights, Create tab Lights. Under the photometric ones, I'm going to choose Sun Positioner, and I'm just going to make one real quick right here, and I don't really care about direction or distance on this one at the moment. Alright, so now that I have my overall setup ready to go, let's see what it looks like. Well, I'll hit this and hold on it. I'm going to come down and let go on the play button one, just so I get my active, constantly updating shader going. Alright, so we can see what's going on in here. My red plane, sphere, and cylinder. We got a little bit of reflection, and that's okay. But it obviously doesn't look like water. So let's go ahead and do some stuff to it. Well, let's go ahead and open up the material editor. And I'm going to come here. Well, let's look at something at first, actually. Well, first off, I have Autodesk Water. I can take this, and I'm going to apply it to my plane, and it kinda, I guess, looks like water. I got some ripples here and there. As it renders out a little bit more, it is not really the greatest. I mean, it is nice that I have all these real quick preset things I can do to it, but nothing about this is going to be, the best for water. If this was smaller, the plane itself, I could probably get more ripples and stuff in here, but it's just not great. So this isn't a good material for us. So instead, let's grab physical material, and let's apply this to the plane. Well, obviously, it looks flat. Well, if I double click in this and I go into all my options, I will have a few things I can do. Well, first off, what I want to do is change this from standard to advanced. And the initial question is, what do I need to do to make this thing look like water? Well, I have a few things. We just look at making glass, which we kind of have this interesting question, which is, what is, in 3D, the difference between water and glass? Realistically, not too much. So just to get some quick things in here, I'm going to hit my drop down and I'm going to choose thin glass. And real quickly, the thin glass is just taking this environmental sun and sky that I have here, this environment, and it's bouncing off of it. It's reflecting it. It's calculating how this thing looks according to the sky. So just for your own theory, what is the difference between, well, let's put it this way. What color is water? It's clear. The only difference between water and glass in the program doesn't really amount to much with just these settings. Where we can really take and start reflecting and pulling color from the sky, and this is why we added so much for poly count to this plane. With it, I'm going to go ahead and just add some more, if it will let me. Let's try 5. Let me do 2000. Alright, so it won't let me do too much more than this for poly count. So I'll just work with this for the moment. I might shrink this plane down a bit. But with this many polygons and everything, we're going to just add something real simple back, from the early days. I'm going to throw on a noise to it. And where did there it is. So with noise, first off I'm going to turn on fractal. I'm going to set my Z strength up to something higher, like a 10. And instantly, this simple plane looks like water, just that quick. So I'm going to increase some of my numbers. That's a little bit too much. Yeah, that's a little bit too much. So I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Increase it. That's still a little bit much. So I'll bring my roughness, let's say, back to, let's do a 0.2. Just to give it a little bit more up and down in here. But it looks pretty much like water. Well, we have a few things still going on that's a problem, so let's go back into the material editor. Well, there's a few things. Right now it's set to thin geometry. Let's try solid. And with solid, it changes pretty heavily overall. Well, here's kind of the gimmick. Set that back to 1.33. For things that are going to be more deep water, I'm going to bring my transparency to something a little bit lesser. Because if it's thicker, deeper water, or more scummy, or something like that, if I have less transparency, I'm going to go ahead and, have things harder to see through. But if it's thinner, cleaner, say a pool, I'm going to want this to be more transparent and less metally so I can see through it. From there, if it's going to be a pool, I'll probably just put on thin walled so I get the ripples. Or, if I want to be real careful with this, I can go through with depth and change how far down it is. I want to be able to see things. And if I can find just the right combination, my depth mixed with transparency, mixed with a little bit of roughness if I want to add it on too, just to help things blur and kind of keep some different shapes, I can go through and create a different kind of water effect, whether I want it to be in the ocean or if I want it to be in a poolside. Give this some ripples, give it some waves, give it some reflections. But every little thing I do is going to make it look like a different kind of water. And that's exactly what we want it to be. So once again, the question between what's the difference between water and glass? Realistically, it's a noise. The ripples, the effects that we put into it, every little thing is going to change how the water reacts and moves. And with all of this, with just a little bit of changes here and there, I can have it look like slime. I can have it look like deep ocean water. Or if I had the bottom of the pool, it can just look like somebody swimming. And the only difference between all of it is the bump. So, that's everything I have to go on for now. So, and that's where I'm going to go ahead and end this one, and I'll see you in the next one.